All right, this is going to be one of those times where you're like, man, I thought Hollywood was wild back in the day, but I had no idea it was this wild.
You suck, you jackass.
Howdy, and thanks for clicking on this channel to see what this jackass has to say. I appreciate you. Today I wanted to talk about the 1980 movie Popeye starring Robin Williams, and no, we're not talking about spinach giving anyone superhuman strength. Instead, I wanted to talk about Tony Montana's favorite topic. Cocaine. It's called cocaine. So much cocaine that the former CEO of Paramount Pictures literally called it the most coked up film set in Hollywood history. And that's not just some random gossip. This dude, Barry Diller, was literally running the movie studio when they made this movie, so he would know better than anyone. But the thing is, they weren't just doing lines in their trailers like your typical Hollywood degenerates. Oh no, these absolute madmen were smuggling cocaine in film cans and hiding it in walkie-talkies like they were running some kind of maritime drug cartel operation. So get yourself comfortable, because we're about to dive into how a wholesome family movie about a cartoon sailor turned into what might be the most drug-fueled production in cinema history.
It was wild.
Our story begins in 1980 when Robert Altman, you know, the film legend who made MASH and The Player, decides he's gonna make a live-action Popeye movie. Now, on paper, this sounds like a great idea. Robin Williams is hot off Mork and Mindy. He's got that manic energy that could totally work for Popeye. And they cast Shelley Duvall as Olive Oyl, which honestly was perfect casting because she already looked like a cartoon character. They decided to film the thing in Malta, you know, that little island in the Mediterranean, because apparently they needed to build an entire fake seaside town called Sweet Haven. And here's where I think things start to get really interesting, because Malta in 1980 wasn't exactly a major film production hub. It's not like today where you can just DoorDash some cocaine to your hotel room. Wait, can you do that? Don't answer that. So here's where things get absolutely bonkers. Barry Diller, who was the CEO of Paramount Pictures at the time, and by the way, this dude is 82 years old now and just wrote a tell-all book called Who Knew, where he's basically spilling all the tea. He recently did an interview where he just casually dropped the most insane behind-the-scenes story I've ever heard. I want you to picture this. Every day during filming, they're sending film cans back to Los Angeles for processing, right?
Well, you take all these cans, you box them, and you ship them.
Standard procedure, except these film cans weren't just carrying film. They were carrying enough cocaine to keep an entire movie set stoned, as Diller put it. And when I say the entire set, I mean the entire set. Diller said, and I quote, "You couldn't escape it. Everyone was stoned." This wasn't just Robin Williams doing a little bump between takes. This was a full-scale operation where they were literally using the film processing system as a drug smuggling network. But wait, it gets better. Van Dyke Parks, the composer who worked on the film score and also appeared in the film as a pianist, he tells this story about how he was trying to change the battery in a walkie-talkie, so he takes it apart, and what does he find? One guess.
Cocaine.
Just sitting there in the walkie-talkie like it's the most normal thing in the world. Parks said he felt uncomfortable because he knew it would influence people's behavior. But here's the kicker, he doesn't even remember who he handed the drugs to. Like, imagine being so surrounded by cocaine that finding it in your equipment is just a regular Tuesday.
Sweet, delicious nose clams that are looking for a home, if you follow me.
Now, Robin Williams' struggles with addiction weren't exactly a secret. The man was open about his cocaine dependency, especially during his rise to fame in the 1970s. As he put it, cocaine was just everywhere in Hollywood. His Mork and Mindy director Howard Storm talked about how Williams would show up to work having not slept at all at night, snorting coke, and then drinking booze to come down. But here's the thing that I think makes this story even more tragic. Williams actually got clean after John Belushi died in 1982. He said, "I didn't want to be a father and live that kind of life." Props off to the man. He recognized that his addiction was destroying not just his career, but his ability to be the father he wanted to be. And that makes this Popeye situation even more heartbreaking, because this was happening right at the peak of his addiction, before he had that wake-up call. He was literally playing a character known for getting superhuman strength from spinach while he was getting his energy from cocaine. That has to be a certain type of irony, right? But if you think Robin Williams was the main character in this cocaine story, you're tragically wrong. The real star of this shit show was producer Robert Evans, the legendary Hollywood producer behind The Godfather and Chinatown. This man nearly caused an international diplomatic incident because his luggage full of cocaine disappeared at the airport. And get this, he was actually arrested for cocaine trafficking while the movie was in post-production. The charges were later removed from his record, but the man literally said in a 1994 interview, "I'll be known as Bob Cocaine Evans until my grave." I want you to imagine for a second being so notorious for cocaine that you nickname name yourself after it. That's some next level awareness shit right there. Now here's where Barry Diller's observations get really interesting. He said that if you watch Popeye, you can actually see the effects of all this cocaine use in the final product. He described it like this: if you think of record speeds, 33 RPM is the usual speed for an LP. This film plays at 78 RPM. And honestly, when you watch the movie with this context, it makes perfect sense. The whole thing feels manic and frantic and just off. Like everyone is moving just a little too fast, talking a little too quickly, and the energy is completely unhinged. Robin Williams is doing this weird Popeye voice and mumbling through half his lines.
I'm looking for me pap. Yeah, I've searched the 7 seas for him and I haven't found him yet.
Shelley Duvall is being, well, Shelley Duvall, and the whole production has this fever dream quality that now makes total sense when you realize literally everyone involved was high as a kite. And from all accounts, this wasn't just a Popeye problem, this was a Hollywood problem. The late 70s and early 80s were absolutely wild in terms of drug use in the entertainment industry. Cocaine was everywhere, and it was almost seen as a status symbol. If you weren't doing cocaine, you weren't successful enough to afford cocaine.
You're poor.
Barry Diller said that during his time at Paramount from 1974 to 1984, this kind of thing was just normal. The fact that he can just casually talk about it now in interviews shows just how normalized it'd become. And here's what kills me about this whole situation. They're making a movie about Popeye, a cartoon whose whole thing is that he gets strength from eating healthy spinach. And meanwhile, the entire cast and crew are getting their energy from snorting booger sugar.
Whiff, coke, toot, lines, blast, rails, nose candy, devil's dandruff, power flower, sniffy jiffy, booger sugar.
It's like if they made a movie about Mr. Rogers and everyone on set was doing meth.
I'm proud of you, you know that. I hope you do.
The cognitive dissonance is just incredible. And the movie was supposed to be a family film. Parents were taking their kids to see this wholesome cartoon adaptation, having no idea it was made by people who were so high they were hiding drugs in walkie-talkies. And the really sad part is what happened to Robin Williams later in life. After getting clean in the early 80s, he stayed sober for decades. But in July 2014, just a month before he died, he checked himself into a drug rehabilitation center because he was really struggling again. Williams was dealing with Lewy body dementia at the time, which his wife later revealed was the real reason he took his own life. The poor man had been fighting addiction for decades, had gotten clean, had built this incredible career and family, and then this devastating disease took it all away from him. So what's the legacy of all this? Well, Popeye the movie was actually a box office success. Despite being critically panned, it made money, which in Hollywood terms means it was a win, regardless of how much cocaine was consumed in the process. But more importantly, it's become this legendary example of just how out of control Hollywood was during this era. When the CEO of a major studio can casually talk about film cans being used to smuggle drugs and everyone on set being stoned, you know things had gotten completely insane. Looking back on this story now in 2025, it's both hilarious and deeply sad. It's hilarious because of the sheer absurdity of it all. Hiding cocaine in walkie-talkies while making a Popeye movie is just peak 1980s Hollywood energy. But when doing research on this topic, I also think it's really sad because it represents this period where addiction was so normalized in the entertainment industry that nobody thought twice about it. Robin Williams' struggles with drugs weren't unique, they were just part of the damn culture. And speaking of 2025, here's a fun fact. Popeye actually entered the public domain this year, which means people can now make their own Popeye content without worrying about copyright. And of course, what's the first thing people make? They made horror movies. There's literally a movie called Popeye the Slayer Man coming out where Popeye is a serial killer. So we've gone from cocaine-fueled family musical to public domain horror movies. That's quite a journey for our favorite spinach-eating sailor.
Well, what a time to be alive.
So in conclusion, the 1980 Popeye movie stands as a testament to just how wild Hollywood used to be. It's a story about how a wholesome family film became the most drug-fueled production in cinema history. How Robin Williams' personal struggles with addiction played out on a very public stage, and how an entire industry was so high on its own supply that they thought hiding cocaine in film equipment was just standard operating procedure. The next time you watch Popeye, and honestly you should watch it now with this context, it's a completely different experience. Remember that you're not just watching a movie, you're watching the end result of what Barry Diller called the most coked up film set in Hollywood history. And quite honestly, that might be the most impressive thing about this movie. The fact that they managed to complete a coherent film where everyone involved was apparently higher than Popeye's anchor is kind of a miracle. So there you have it, the true story of how Popeye traded spinach for cocaine and somehow still managed to save the day. I can't thank you enough for watching. And remember, if you're ever feeling like your workplace is dysfunctional, just remember that at least your coworkers probably aren't hiding drugs in the office equipment. Probably. Make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about the entertainment industry's wildest moments. And hey, If you know any other insane behind-the-scenes stories from movie sets, drop them in the comments because apparently I need to know all about this stuff. Peace out, and remember, eat your spinach, not your cocaine. As always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what do I know? I'm but a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Catch you later, friends.
That talks too much. I'm just a jackass of all trades. Don't know shit. I'll keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'll spout.